All right. We're live, Thomas.
Well, hello. That's great.
That is great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Digitize HQ. We are streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn. It's where are we at? YouTube and Twitter. We're all over the place. And the reason that I bring that up is the power of digital, right? We're going to talk today about how is analog selling different than digital selling. And I just thought it was such a great example of some of the features or tools or opportunities that we have in a pure digital environment.
Right.
Right? What do you think about that as a starting point?
I think that's a great starting point.
Cool.
I think that's a great starting point.
And I want to
New Jersey.
shout out there to Jamie. Cold day in New Jersey.
I don't know if you can see it behind me, but there's snow here. So we're probably just as cold, if not colder, here in Fargo, North Dakota. So
that's it. Well, and Jamie, thanks for doing that. And for anyone else that's watching, let's just set this up a bit too, that hey, Digitize HQ is a community where we want to talk all things digital enablement from the C-suite to the front line. And so if you're not a part of the community yet, you can go find us at Digitize HQ in Facebook or LinkedIn groups. And digitizehq.com is coming in January, where we'll have a free community, a free forum, free membership program. But we just want to hear, talk, share all things digital as we move into the remainder of the 2020s. And if the first 20 and 21 are any indication of this decade, it's going to be a heck of a ride and lots of change, lots and lots of change.
Yeah. And everybody, one way or the other, whether they realize it or not, are going more and more digital. And that's why Digital HQ is such an important thing. And sometimes they're doing it on purpose, and sometimes they're doing it unconsciously, but they're absolutely doing it. And the biggest change has been that buyers and customers and the people we work and communicate with are already doing it 24/7.
Yeah. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, what I mean by that is everybody today communicates and does pretty much everything in the digital world. And retail knows this, and retail has done an amazing job. In fact, they were a big reason that all this has happened as quickly as it has, especially with the changes that have happened with the pandemic and everything else. But the fact is, we all communicate on these things 24/7. Right? And whether we're talking to our kids or our wives or our friends or our work associates or our customers, we're doing it primarily through here. The funny thing is, especially in the B2B world, most businesses haven't really incorporated that mindset of where their customers are and how they communicate into their business model. And therein is the conversation around digital and Digitize HQ.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep talking. You got it.
So what we really want to help people do is to connect those dots, right? And I don't know how many people you know, but everybody wants to really use data, right? All the data that they get from all these various points within their company in a way that really helps them create better customer experiences and create better customer user interfaces and create better results, right? And digital does all of that, but only when we connect those dots, right? And we align all of those areas. And today, for many, many businesses, those areas are still aligned and connected in what we would call the analog world. And that's where there's a break in the chain. And that's where there's a break in the data and a break in the communication. And because of that, there's gaps that are not yet being connected properly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I think that, you know, one of I'm going to break it down to something really simple. I
Sure.
think that
Sure.
was a big aha moment for me several years ago. Um, I was at a well, and it happened again recently, like I guess several years ago it was still, but it was right before COVID, 6 months or so before COVID lockdown started hitting. But I was at a live networking event, and we're standing around. There's 4 or 5 of us, kind of sitting in a circle, chatting. We all had a cocktail in our hand, right? One of those, the event part, the talk part hadn't happened yet, and we're chatting and doing our thing. And all of a sudden, this woman came in, and she kind of said, "Oh, excuse me," and like kind of parted a few people, and said, "I don't mean to interrupt." Well, number one, yeah, you do. That's exactly what you did, and you knew what you were doing. But I don't mean to interrupt. And she said, and then she did her little spiel, her little pitch, and then walked around and put her business card in everyone's hand. And she said, "Oh, okay, sorry," and walked away. And we all sat around and looked at each other and we're like, "What the heck?" And, my personality, I said, "Well, I'll start. Everybody else, you want to put them in here?" And everybody put her card in my hand, and I walked over and I threw them away. And I didn't mean to be rude, but what she did was rude. And when I think about analog selling, is a lot of us know that type of behavior doesn't work. That kind of interruptive, in your face, without relationship, without conversation. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to put my stuff in front of you face to face. I mean, it's bold, but it doesn't work real well because most humans go, "Wait, back off. What are you doing?" But what I've noticed is a lot of that activity, that negative activity, actually takes place in the digital environment a lot. I was talking to someone earlier this morning, and I said, what a lot of people do in digital with posting brochures and everything, thinking if I post it, they will come. I said, well, try that at the next live networking event you're at. Just take a big stack of brochures and walk around with everybody and just put it in their face, put it in their hands, and walk away. See how that works for you. Right? We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that. So there's similarities, but there's differences, in my opinion, between analog and digital. But figuring out how to behave, how to act in different platforms is the key, because we need to connect with people. We need to start conversations with people. We need to network like we've always had to network. It's just more often it's going to come right here now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the example you give is so accurate today, because so many companies are taking their old analog behaviors, as you so aptly described it, and trying to bring those same behaviors into the digital world. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the big mistake is. A, they're not coming into the digital world in a way that people behave. So their behavior is inconsistent. So whether they're going on LinkedIn and dropping all of these immediate sell pitches to everybody to connect with, or whether they're sending out messages through Facebook or otherwise that are just pure spam and pure selling in the way that
Mm-hmm.
you suggested, that analog behavior from the previous world and the previous times we may have lived in just don't work anymore. Customer behavior today is radically different. And why is that? Well, it's because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep showing that, but that's because that's where people live. And
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what your demographics are, it doesn't matter what your geography is. Everybody lives through that portal and that device. And so any question they have, it doesn't matter what it is, what's the weather today, right? Where can I get my car washed? Where's the best place for me to get an accounting platform for my small business or my big business or whatever it is? Whatever question it is, they Google it.
Right.
And when they Google it, you either come up or you don't. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't come up, you don't exist. That's number one. But number two, if you do come up, you need to come up in a way that's informative, that helps them with questions they have, and gives them the ability to learn more in a way they want to learn more, right? And you got to think about yourself. If you're looking for something, do you want pop-ups on your screen just annoying you, or do you want a message and information that helps you with step-by-step process? Do you want people to just inundate you with information you're not interested in, or do you want to approach it at your own pace and in a way that's effective for you as a buyer, a consumer, a customer, whatever the case may be? And I think we know what the answer is, but we don't behave that way.
Right. Right. Well, and I would add to that too, Thomas. You gave the example of Googling it, which I think is very valid. But I've also seen data suggesting that more people are moving into social, and a term that I like to use of really crowdsourcing their search. Right. And here's an example. It's more on a consumer side, but I've seen it in a B2B side as well. I don't know, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was, my wife called me and she said, "Hey, the gentleman that did our yard for us, he was an older gentleman, and it was kind of his post-retirement activity that he did, and his wife had called and said that." He got sick and he wouldn't be coming anymore. Well, he hadn't been there for like 2, 3 weeks. Our grass was high and all that type of stuff. And she said, well, what should I do? And I said, well, you know what? Go into our group, our Facebook group, and just ask the neighbors who they recommend. And she threw it in there, and then she left and did her thing. We got 5 kids. She's a busy mom. And she, by the later in the afternoon, I had talked to her and I said, "Hey, how'd that work?" She said, "Oh, I got it. It's all done." Well, what do you mean it's all done? She goes, "I had a bunch of recommendations, and one of them, there are people tagging, oh, we use this guy, we use that. And one of them, he messaged me, said, hey, I'm actually in your neighborhood right now. If you want, I'm going to come do your yard for free. And if you like it, then we can talk about, put me on my, routine. I do your neighborhood every, whatever it was, Tuesday." And it was just done. And I've seen that in B2B world as well, where I saw just, I don't know, a few weeks, a month ago, SVP of demand gen saying, "Hey, we're looking for a new agency in Southeast Asia that can da 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 da. Who do you all recommend?" It's I think this digital world just gives us all new opportunities. And what I do know about us as people, we like the fastest, easiest method possible. And so that crowdsourcing our search, I think, is just becoming more and more of a daily routine.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And there's so many different ways to do that. But at the end of the day, the common denominator there that you mentioned was social, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what social channel you might prefer to be on, it doesn't really matter what it is. Social is the way most people communicate today. And if your customers are on one channel versus another channel, or they're using one social media platform versus another, whatever it might be, then that's where you need to be. And they very often are grouped together. There's an old saying that that really applies here. Birds of a feather stick together, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing more true. So if you have customers that you're familiar with, and those customers that you're familiar with are mostly on, Facebook, or they're mostly on LinkedIn, it doesn't really matter, or both, then it's quite likely that all the customers you want to develop in the future, and all the business connections in your network and all those kinds of things, are going to be similar to them, and they too are going to be in those areas or on those platforms. And therefore, you need to allow them the opportunity to do what Brandon just said, which is crowdsource you by being a very active member and credible source of information on whatever platform that is. And I think that's where people miss the boat. They're not there in the first place, other than maybe having what I'll call a dead profile. I mean, how many people do you know have a profile on LinkedIn, Brandon, but show up once a month, whether they have to or not?
Yeah. Well, exactly. And as we we do our own, and we train people on what social engagement really looks like. It's not post it and they will come. It's, hey, go engage with people that you want to build conversations with, using digital to be the catalyst that leads to a virtual coffee or whatever. I mean, I just before we came online, I was on a Zoom with a really great guy from Arizona. That was the first time I was on a Zoom, but you know, we met online. I was strategic with my engagement, and it led to, hey, we're starting to get to know each other online. Should we have a Zoom? Let's get to know each other. It's the topic for today was, how is analog and digital the same or different? You know, it's a rich medium. It's a rich channel. We have to remember our humanness, in my opinion, when we go into digital, because if we forget that human people are on the other end, it creates bad behavior, in my opinion. That's where we just start sending messages to people going, hey, this is how awesome I am. You got 30 minutes for a demo, because we just don't realize or think that there's a human being on the other end that's going to respond like a human being.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Just before we got on here, I was speaking to a couple of people. One was in Germany, right, and another was in Argentina, and another was in here in the U.S. in the Virginia area, and we were all talking as we are now. The interesting thing that's happened is people say, well, we're not able to meet with people like we used to, and I would argue we meet with people 10 times more than we ever did. Right?
Yeah.
Because now we can jump into these meetings and talk to people. It doesn't matter where they are within reason. And we can have these conversations and talk about, our interests, what we like, what we do. We've become more human, I think, through digital than we ever were before in the analog world, using, email and fax machines and all those other analog tools and devices. The digital age has opened us up to live video and live communication, and what I like to call real-time communication, in a way that we've just never been able to do before. Now, this is where I was going before, in that most people don't even realize how digital they've become, right? And yet, and all they need to do is to connect all these different dots and realize that everything that you're doing, your customers are doing this too. So how do you take advantage of that in a way that promotes what you want your customers to see?
Yeah, and give it people a bit more. I mean, I know you've done it before, but so I got my brain's going in two directions. Number one, Jamie, I'm curious what you meant by this. I don't think we're talking flat earthers here, but I'm really curious if you want to clarify what that means.
Maybe that means
I'd love to hear it. But the other piece, Thomas, and you say this a lot, and it's very good, but I want to make sure that people are understanding it. You say your buyers are doing the same thing that you do. Like, tactically, and break it down. What exactly does that? What do you mean by that?
Right. So we, as just people, as humans, right? Forget the fact that we own a company, or we're a buyer ourselves, or we're a sales manager or an accounting manager, or whatever we do. We as humans are consumers. We're customers to somebody, somewhere, something. And our behavior,
everybody's buying and everybody's selling.
buying something at some point, right? It doesn't really matter who or what or where you're doing that, right? And your behavior, your method of doing that, right, is no different than your customers, right? So we forget that the first thing that we do when we jump on this thing is step one, we might Google it. Step two, we might reach out to, hey, I think Mary did something with that. I wonder if Mary can help me with what I'm looking for here. So we reach out to Mary on Twitter or on LinkedIn or on Facebook Messenger or whatever it is. And Mary comes back and says, as your wife crowdsourced the need that she had, the same thing. Well, we use this, you might like it because of that. So then we do a little bit more research and we do that. But when we go back to our job as in whatever role we are, we want to talk to our customers, we forget what we do as customers and treat our customers as if they don't do that. And then we barrage them with all these emails, or we send them all these corporate ads through it. It doesn't matter what media you're doing, because a corporate ad is a corporate ad is a corporate ad is a corporate ad, and it's crap, right? And nobody's paying any attention to it. It doesn't matter where you put it. It's still a corporate crap spammy ad. And that's what people don't respond to. And we forget that we as people do that. Why would we think our customers are somehow different from what we do?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, and that's, when we're in social, like, so we all act and behave in similar ways. So when we pull this up and we go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I don't care where it is. There's this belief that I think is really false, that when I'm on LinkedIn, I'm in business mode. And when I'm on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, I'm in personal mode.
Right.
And when I'm on Twitter, who knows what mode you're in. But for me, who knows? But we can't get away from this, right? Our title is our title, but our human heart is who we are.
Right.
And so the example, that call that I was just on before we went live, he referenced a post that I did 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, I don't know. And it was where he and I connected, and I didn't know we connected over it because it was all digital.
Right.
And it was a post that I did about this, a 9-year-old boy, our neighbor, riding his little mini dirt bike up our driveway, and me hearing a motorcycle and going out and looking. And, I've got 5 kids and 4 of them are older. And then we have our 8-year-old. The last person I expected a boy on a motorcycle to be asking for was my 8-year-old daughter. And, here he is, he opens up and goes, "Hey, Mr. Lee, can Zoe come out and play?" And it cracked me up, and I took a picture and I shared the experience, and it was funny. Well, here we are 6, 7, 8 weeks later. We're on our first Zoom together, and he references that. Why? Well, he has 6 kids. We connected on something human and personal. And then eventually it led to, "Hey, I want to know what you guys do. This is interesting. And by the way, I want to get to know you," type of thing. Actually, it was more about, "I want to get to know you." And then, "Well, what exactly you do? That's interesting," type of conversation. And so when you say your buyers are doing the same thing that you do, we got to remember the way that we go into these things. Right? When I'm on LinkedIn, I'm not just in Brandon's CEO funnel amplified mode. You can't separate that. I saw something the other day that was, somebody was talking about a event they went to, and they got this bottle of wine, and they were sharing about the event and everything. And I'm honing in on, "You got a cool bottle of wine. That's awesome." That had nothing to do with my title. That was who I am as a human being. Is that?
That's perfect. And that's what people relate to in the end. People want to know that you're a human and that you're real, and that you're not, you're not a bot, or you're not some automated process or some spammy thing or corporate thing, or worse, a high pressure salesperson that's going to really push them to do this, that, or the other thing. So they want to know all those things. And social allows you to see the real person, or it doesn't.
Right.
And if it doesn't, then you're likely not going to be a credible source or person or company or what have you that they're going to feel comfortable with. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point.
And that's, it's buyers. And I use the term buyers, but people that we do business with, they want to feel good about the person they're doing business with. And Jamie just said it right there: human relationships build businesses. Thanks, Jamie. And by the way, I want to acknowledge this. I don't know who the Facebook user is. When you watch lives on StreamYard, you got to click that link and go to StreamYard and give it permission so we could pull in your picture and your name. But thank you for thank you for adding that into our conversation today. But we want to, when we buy or when we engage a company, we want to feel good about our decision. And a big part of that is feeling that we like the person, we enjoy them, we want to be around them, we trust them. And I feel like we knew that in the analog world, but we forget it sometimes when we get into the digital world and we go into efficiency mode. But it's not efficient, right? We think it's efficient. I'm just going to post this stuff and they're all going to come because they're all going to see how wonderful I am. And that didn't work offline, and it doesn't work online. And I think that's the biggest thing for people to understand is how that human will connect in a digital world in the most efficient way. And it's not what most people think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, how many of us have worked with a big organization, one way or the other, as a customer, as a consumer, as a business, B2B, whatever it might be. Let me use LinkedIn as the example. Let me use LinkedIn here as a source that we work with day in, day out. And sometimes LinkedIn's got a wrinkle or something that we want to do better or we don't understand. So we want to reach out to LinkedIn, and we want to get feedback from LinkedIn. And most people don't know what I'm about to say. So hopefully this will be helpful for some people. When you want to reach out and you have a question or a query on LinkedIn, you can go up into LinkedIn and they've got a bunch of responses and Q&A and some different ways that you can find out. But I have a much, much better way of getting almost an immediate response from LinkedIn. And not many people know this, but LinkedIn has a channel on Twitter. It's called LinkedIn Help. And if you go to LinkedIn Help and you put in your question, you will be answered very quickly by a human being who actually will take the time to ask what the issue is, find out a little bit about you and your profile, and answer your question, right? And that's something that many businesses and organizations can take a cue from, because that's what people want. They want to be able to do that in their own way, at their own pace. If I want to go to the website and there's some Q&A questions there that I can use and answer, that's great. But if I want a real person, I want a real person. And I want to be able to be human through the digital channels that are there. And social and digital gives you those tools, but so many businesses just are not yet incorporating those tools. And therefore there's that gap I keep talking about.
Yeah. So Desiree, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming in. Just a little shout out to you there. It's as you say that, it makes me think of what do you think about self-checkout at grocery stores?
It varies. I think mostly I like it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's efficient and you can move through quickly. But it depends. It depends on the day. Very often, if it's not crazy in a store, I'll still go to the checkout because I like to talk and chat it up and say hello, how are you, and go through all that. And so I like it, but I don't always use it, I must admit.
Yeah. I get like, for me, it's kind of like talking to a bot.
Yeah.
If it's really busy and I'm in a hurry, I have no problem.
Right.
But I don't know, there's still something, and maybe it's just my old school nature, that as much as I'm a digital guy, right? I mean, I love digital, obviously.
Sure.
But there's something about that.
But look at the services now that have blossomed, right? In terms of home delivery, in terms of now you can put your order into the grocery store and go pick it up at the curb, or they deliver it to you. So we do take advantage of all of these things. But at the end of the day, how was that process started? It started right here. And it started in the digital world, and it's still happening in that way. And if you're not set up in that way to work with customers, then there's no way they can work with you. And you have to be credible. You have to have a great, because what's the first thing people do when they do find you? They cross-reference you, right? They get a hold of Mary or Bob, or they look at your customer reviews or whatever it is. But they ask people, what about these guys? Are they any good? Right? Or they go and look at the reviews. And if you don't come up or there's no answer to that, again, you lose.
Yeah.
So these things are all connected.
Yeah. Interesting little mini poll we have going on with self-checkout. And I think, I mean, for me, self-checkout is a metaphor or an example of this digital and analog divide.
Okay.
And I think in a lot of things, there's benefits to it and there's frustrations to it.
Sure.
And I do fully believe that self-checkout is going to become the norm.
Oh, I think so too.
Right? It's definitely going to become the norm, but we're in that middle stage where there's people that have previous histories and experiences. And I think as Desiree said, I refuse self-checkout because I like talking to the person on the other side. So she has experiences like that. And she doesn't want to give those up. That's part of her culture of going to the grocery store and having that as part of the experience. And I think that in sales and customer success and in the C-suite, it doesn't really matter. We're in this phase where change is being forced upon us, but we have previous experiences that we're used to. Maybe we think we like it better, whatever. And we're dragging our feet as we move into this digital era, but we don't have a choice. I mean, we can go kicking and screaming, or we could go into this going, hey, COVID variants, more people don't want to travel as much. People are refusing face-to-face. They'll just prefer to do a Zoom. People want to get up and get ready in the morning and drive their car an hour and go to work. Like all these things, all these changes have taken place, accelerated because of COVID for sure. But it's changing the way we do things.
100%.
It's just like that grocery store experience. And I don't know if it'll be a year or 2 years or 10 years, but all self-checkout is going to become the norm, whether we like it or not. Digital relationship building is here and now, but it's going to become the norm. So start now. You got to start figuring out how to do it now. And it's just the change of the way most people show up is the difference between, oh, this didn't work, and oh my gosh, I love this. It's helping me grow my business, grow my sales, fill my pipeline, whatever it may be.
And when you think about it in the old analog, and by the way, I keep calling it old because by definition with technology it's old, but it's not necessarily old by way of use. Many companies still do what I'm about to talk about, and that is they have salespeople roaming the countryside, going to events or knocking on doors or reaching out to people by phone or email using what we call old analog ways. Now, that's not to say that some of those ways don't still have impact and shouldn't be part of what you're doing. But the fact is, some of the digital ways that we're talking about will have much more impact. And when you balance and align these things in a process that works for your company, you're going to get much more impact and much more results. And those are the things that we're talking about. And today I can have and often do have, and that's true for you too, Brandon, we can be meeting with 10, 15, 20 people a day in this process, whether individually or in groups and in real time every time. We could never do that before, unless we did go to that networking event and be that annoying person giving out the cars, I suppose. But today we don't even have to do that, right? So today we can do this and have so much more fun and have real conversations and never have to go out and do that. Now, again, that's not to say that we should never do that. That's to say that using this process, we use the word digital, but it really is social. And that's what people need to start comprehend and to work with.
Yeah. So what, Thomas, what do you think? What are some of the other, I mean, you just said it really is social.
Mhm.
Um, can you expand a little bit on that? And let me lead you a little bit. What I'm thinking is, um, a lot of times if we use the word social, people think LinkedIn or Facebook, maybe
Right.
Twitter, maybe Instagram. But the reason I like the word digital is it's not just about social media. Digital is about using whatever tools are available to us to connect with people in a digital environment. Social is one part of it, but what about WhatsApp? What about Facebook Messenger? What about other
Slack
channels?
and Teams and all of those things. Yeah, those are
Yeah.
a very, very big part of the total as well. And now you can do things right from many, if not all of those platforms that put you right into a video conversation and put you right into that real time connect, whether it be like a video or whether it be in terms of texting and chatting back and forth in real time. Any and all those things are available. So I agree with you. The word social, as it relates to social media, is the fact that those media channels are large social channels that people will meet with socially. But the word social basically means us being human, being
Yeah.
social with each other and talking about how are your kids today and how did that go with you, with your family and all these things. And now we can relate with those things on business channels and on network channels, digital or social, in a way we never could before. So now you really do get to know that person on the other side. Or, and again, I keep having to come back to this because we can't make the point enough, or you can't. Now, if I'm going to work with, this veterinary clinic or that veterinary clinic or this accounting firm or that accounting firm, and I got to stop talking with my hands so much.
No, it's good. I do it all the time. You're totally allowed.
But
Hey,
what?
that's the thing, right? No, but wait, let me go, don't lose your thought.
Sure.
But you're just because you're digital, why would you change who you are in analog?
Exactly. And if I go into one firm that I'm thinking of or looking at, and I know Mary and I know Bob, and there's some people that I can relate to, but I go to another one and there's no pictures, there's no interface. It's just here's the phone number, here's the email, call us. And then as soon as you leave that, of course, you get inundated with all this other information that you didn't ask for, right? That's now just annoying. Well, which one are you going to?
Right.
Well, duh. And yet we don't think about that as our business. We
Yeah.
think, well, emails haven't been as effective. We've been sending out 100 every day. Let's bump that to 200 because that's going to improve it, right?
Right.
Or the call out campaigns aren't working. We're trying to get them to make X amount per day. Let's double that. Or let's double our trade show budget, even though people aren't going to them, or they're not effective, or
Yeah.
they're not available. So, we just
Yeah.
have to start thinking.
Yeah. I like this one, Desiree's
Okay.
bit of an aha moment here. I have a Facebook group with about 300 women, but I have not looked at being social with them the way I would, quote, in real life. Going to do things differently now. Be human, period. Desiree, I want to hear what that, maybe she can come on sometime and join
Yeah.
us, but I'd love to hear what that looks like, what that plays out, and of course, how it works. Because, it really is. I think I love that she had that aha moment because, getting I think Mike Garrison, our buddy, says this a lot. If you're not comfortable with who you are offline, you're going to have a really hard time being comfortable with who you truly are online. And that's a really, really good point.
Sure is.
But for us just to get back to the basics of how would I act, operate, treat people in a networking world and really translate that well or duplicate it well in digital. I think it's just, one, it is the future and the future is now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But it's also about thinking from the consumer and the customer standpoint, and stop
Mhm.
thinking about just I'm at work now, so I must behave this way.
Yeah.
When we train people, as we do, in terms of using digital for their businesses, you know, the first thing you've got to do is, and you do this so well, right, is just change that perspective. I love that. But it's about getting them out of that box, right? And what I always find so interesting, no matter what kind of business they're in, retail, manufacturing, technology, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's in this box. The age doesn't matter, because they can be just as stuck in that box if they're in their 20s or 30s as if they're in their 40s, 50s, or otherwise, right? So anybody and everybody can get stuck in that box. You have to realize that you too have to communicate with people just as you would want them to communicate with you, whatever it is. And this is the greatest tool ever. Are you kidding?
Yeah. I appreciate how you always go back to, because I say a lot, the way that you would show up or act in a analog event, in a networking event, you need to show up in real life or in digital. And I like the way that you take that a little bit deeper, because I start coming from the assumption that people show up well in real events, that they're under. And what I mean by show up well is, my favorite book of all time, I think, is How to Win Friends and Influence People, just because it's so simple and so practical. Like, if you show up being all about me in any environment, it's going to repel people. But if you show up in an environment and it's how to win friends, like smile, laugh, ask them questions, like be other oriented, then people are going to be drawn to you. So I really appreciate how you constantly go back to remembering how you want to be treated as a buyer, or how you behave as a buyer, because it's not a given that everybody shows up other oriented, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the skills that we need to learn and to use in every day and the things that we're doing are not hard. It's a different thinking, it's a different behavior, but the skills aren't hard. The skills are skills we use every day as real people. Just take those same skills and put them in the digital world and be human, as you said. And great things happen, right? And that's where we become impactful. But when we hide behind a website, or when we hide behind corporate systems and processes, that's when things start to fall apart. Because when we can't communicate, either as a team or with our markets, our customers, and all the people we work with as stakeholders, we fail. And whether we fail today or tomorrow doesn't matter. The fact is, we'll fail.
Yeah, absolutely. What are, let me put Desiree's comment up, and then, so there are so many mixed messages out there by all the gurus. And I see how it happens in corporate too. You show up one way outside of work and show up professionally. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I do think, thank you for that again, Desiree. It is the same. It's, when we're face to face with customers and buyers, and you go to dinner, you go spend any length of time, you spend time on a golf course or some sort of a social event like that. If you're not genuine, it's going to come out.
Right. Well, I mean, what's the first thing that you do when you get to know somebody? And I don't care in what context. What's the very first thing you do?
Have a meal.
Well, you have a meal, but before you did that, you probably looked them up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter where you looked them up. You looked them up.
Yep. Yeah.
Is that person the same as what I'm seeing here, or vice versa? And if that's not the case, then what gives, right? And those cues, whether you realize they're there and being used in real time, are there, and they are. And that's the thing. So if you want to have an impact with your audience, and we talk to salespeople about this, but the real people that need to do a better job of this, in all honesty, is senior management, executives, owners, people of that kind, whether they're a small business owner or a big business owner or whatever, but leadership. And these are the people that really make a mess of this, right? In many, and that's not to say everybody, because there are some great examples of those who do a wonderful job. But there are so many more examples of corporate leadership that don't even have a profile, or if they do, they haven't touched it in 6 months or 9 months or a year or what have you. And there's nothing more a deterrent in working with a company whose leadership or ownership doesn't exist anywhere on here because they don't want you to know who they are. Right? Well, which company and group do you want to know better? People who you can talk to and go talk and see if they're real and empathetic and good to their employees and good to their customers, or people who hide behind a website or a corporate persona that nobody can get through? Which would you prefer to deal with?
Yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer, right?
Those are real cues. Yeah, that happens, right? And they may not think about it, but they're doing it.
Yeah. Now, I think that message right there, Thomas, I think is so important, so important, especially for senior leadership, C-suite. Like, you have a 24-hour opportunity to present yourself to the world, to your customers, to the industry, to everybody. And if you want to get more speaking events at conferences or whatever your motivation is, you've got this 24-hour opportunity, and most are not taking advantage of it. I find it so interesting when I do a little bit of research. I'll go to a company C-suite on LinkedIn, and I'll go look and see the last time that they've posted something, and it's 4 months ago, 5 months ago, a year ago, even if it's 1 month ago. And I'm thinking, how are you not? I mean, I get it. We're all busy. But if you want to talk about tools and efficiency of tools, this is the most efficient tool to communicate to your audience. But if you're not, but if it's been 4 months since you last posted, and then you look and the post was, an announcement of, something, an award they got or something, it's like, really? Are you not thinking about the power, the utility of this tool to influence
and to have
and have an impact? And it's influencing your industry, your customers, your prospective customers, your team. Like, isn't that what leadership is supposed to be about?
And your family and your friends, it's all of the above. And it just amazes me. And here's the other thing that's so interesting, and it just gets better and better. It's so easy. I mean, I'm a lot of things, but a technocrat and an IT person it's not even in the top 100. I'm one of those people that can find a way to screw the DVR or the PVR up every single time and just destroy whatever anybody else has set up, and then blame the equipment, of course. So, but I find this so crazy easy, and you can get with it very quickly. It's not something that you have to overcome or go to a course to get good at. It's natural.
Yeah, and I think the challenge is between our ears, to be honest. And we know that technically, and that's not difficult. I think it's more, and I love this. I take it from Mike Garrison all the time. Is, if you're not comfortable with who you are in an offline world, it's going to be really difficult to present yourself in an online world. I think that, number one, having a strategy to how you want to be in a digital world is the most important thing, right? You've heard me say this all the time about Covey. Think with the end in mind. We've got to start there. So you need a strategy of how you're going to present yourself digitally. And you need to be comfortable with having that to be some personal, some human, because that's a human connection. You're not gonna go to bring a bunch of customers into a golf event, as an example, and only talk business for all 18 holes and the after party. Like, you just don't, right? So you've got to have that strategy, and then you have to have your systems in place, which may include, what platforms am I going to use? Which tools am I going to use? What do I use my phone for? What do I use desktop for? Where do I get help from people like, oh, I need help with graphics or this or that? All that's fine. But you got to have your strategy, and you got to have your system. And then I think the big thing is, you've got to get really, really comfortable and awareness of who you are. And that's where I think pulling into the Simon Sinek's why, knowing your why, because when you have those things all in place, you have freedom. You have freedom to use digital because you have a strategy, you have a plan, and you have a purpose. And now digital becomes an amazing tool. But if you can't get those things lined up, then it's just random acts of social with the false conclusion of it doesn't work. Should I get off my
No,
soapbox?
it's all perfect. You know, the other thing I like to tell people, and you and I do it all the time, me more than you, I think, but I screw it up all the time, right? So whether whether you're coming onto this or that or the other thing, and it doesn't come out right, and that's when I see that from somebody else, it makes me chuckle a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're real people doing the same things that I do, or do, and that's the real thing. That's how this all works. Sometimes we're upside down and we don't mean to be.
Yeah. And I mean, for anyone listening right now, just being fully authentic, I'm in a stage right now where my online engagement is down. And I don't know why. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, this isn't like, oh, we got to a place where we post something and 50,000 views of things. Like, my online engagement right now has been down for the past week or so. And I'm looking at it and analyzing it and trying to figure out, like, okay, what of my behavior? And what I've realized is my own engaging with other people has dropped over the last 7 to 10 days because I've been super busy. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at what I posted. I'm looking at the times I post, look at what I've said. Like, all of those things take place. And it's no different than I'm at a conference, I'm at a trade show, whatever, and I'm not getting into the good conversations. What's going on? What am I doing? Is it the wrong people here? Like, you assess things and you ask other people for help, right? You learn from other people and you regroup and you move forward. This isn't what's that?
There's such a big advantage. Because now, and you've heard me say this a million times, and you'll probably hear it a million more times before you tell me to stop, but you can do everything in real time, right? So as you make changes and adjustments, and as you do different things, unlike the analog world, which can take months before did this work, did that work, are we getting the result? The digital world gives you data back from all flows. If I want to see if my new customer interface on my website is getting traction and people are enjoying it and liking it, I can see that in real time if I choose to do that, right? Now, if I don't choose to, I would just throw it up and hope for the best. Well, then you didn't do a very good job in the first place. But you can get results and see on your social. If my social engagement is not where it should be, I can look at that and tweak it and do things in real time. And I can see that impact me today, not next week or 3 months from now, today. And that's what I love about it, because we can have an impact for people, customers, clients, almost immediately. The only thing slowing us down is not us, but they're getting with it and being an active participant in the process.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, as we're coming into the top of the hour here, I'm curious from other people what the next topic should be, what they're curious about, what they're thinking when it comes to digital and social. What do you think those topics should be, Thomas?
Well, I mean, I think it's great to get input from people, and so that they have questions, and generally it's going to relate to their own experiences and their own needs, either as a business or an individual or both. I mean, we're here to help help with that, but also, and this is the big thing, we're here to learn too, right? And different people have different experiences doing different things, and this is a forum where you can bring that forward. And on Digital HQ, our group page on Facebook,
Digitize HQ.
Thank you. On Digitize HQ, our group page on Facebook, you have the ability to jump into that forum. Please join us there and join. And that's the whole point of it, right? Is for all of us to learn and to get even better at it and bring different different ways that we can take advantage of that. I mean, all these different things are morphing and growing and evolving as we talk today. I mean, Clubhouse has kind of come, and I wouldn't say it's gone, it's evolved, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good tool. And you've got TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
you've got, how are people using those things
Well,
in their business, or aren't they? Are those good or
yeah.
are they bad? And if so, what's been your experience?
Yeah. Well, and did you see Twitter's version of Clubhouse?
I did.
Yeah, I forget what it was called. Twitter Spaces?
Yes.
Spaces.
I actually
Yeah.
tried it. I didn't find it quite the same.
Yeah.
But Twitter has a much bigger audience, so there's a lot more you could do with that theoretically
Mm-hmm.
if you
Yeah.
align it properly. But the behavior on Twitter doesn't really jive with that. So I
Right.
don't know that it's had the same impact. But again, every one of these is so interesting and so different, and brings you
Yeah.
so many different ways. How many people are using the video opportunity on LinkedIn? I mean, now in the
Right.
DM, you can actually video chat with somebody right from there.
Yeah.
I've only done it a couple,
Absolutely.
but it works quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
So,
I've had that on my content hub for a while, as you know.
yeah,
That somebody can just click right there and pop into my Zoom. And I just left it open all the time. I just leave it open because it's like someone just knocking on your door. Hey, I was just passing by. You got a minute? If I'm willing to open up the time, why shouldn't we be able to do that with people? I think there's some better technology that's coming along about those virtual offices and rooms that people can walk by.
whether you're going to talk about meta and the meta universe and all of that,
Yeah.
that's probably a whole show just in and of itself. But
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's fun to talk about right now. I don't
yeah,
think Meta is going to be tomorrow. I don't think it'll even be next year. I think early adopters are going to start, using it. But I still think, you go back to, like, for me, like Google Glasses.
right.
Remember, everyone was, oh, this is going to change everything. And it just, I
It
don't
just
think we were ready. We weren't ready for it.
some
Right. And
technologies just look like they're there. Like, do you remember the Segway?
yeah,
You remember the Segway?
yeah, absolutely. I love it, Jamie. The meta land grab. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember the Segway.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody thought that was going to be the greatest, the biggest, and it just,
Yeah.
kind of fizzled. So different things did do different things. So we'll have to see.
Yeah,
We'll have to see.
absolutely. All right. Well, Thomas, thank you so much for your wisdom and input as usual. And I would say for everyone else, you want to be on the show, come join us. Like, this isn't our show as much as we are just facilitating. We want to make sure that we're talking about the right topics, that we're having the right conversations, and we have the right people sharing their experiences. But if you're not joined our community yet, go to Digitize HQ on either LinkedIn or Facebook for our groups. And digitizehq.com is coming in January, where you could have a free membership there and join the conversation and be a part of the forum. So really looking forward to everything we learn from all of you in that. Anything else you want to add, Thomas?
No, I think that was a perfect wrap up. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and I hope it's warmer there than it is here.
Amen to that. All right, everybody. Happy Friday. We'll see you next week.
Bye bye.